And I'm going to publicly admit that I would have to put on my girdle and my big jogging pants and go steal food for my children because I was blacklisted in Southern California because I couldn't work. I never had a reputation for not having beautiful costumes and clothes or being great on the show and new music. I just had a bunch of jealous people that were in charge that could not take that. I was not going to accept you talking to me any kind of way, and I don't care who you think you are.
It starts with just taking that leap.
Man, you have to work hard. You have to be incredibly smart.
Choose something that even if it fails, you are going to be proud of it.
Doesn't matter how badly you got beaten in battle.
Be kind, be kind, be kind.
Become a better person, a better leader, a better business.
Go with your gut.
I'm Samuel Donner, and this is Finding Founders. Broke, blacklisted, and betrayed by other jealous comedians, Flame Monroe was left struggling to provide for herself and her family. But that was then. Now, more than a decade later, Flame is back in the spotlight, appearing on HBO's Def Comedy Jam and the Emmy-nominated Netflix series Tiffany Haddish presents They Ready. As her story above hints, life as a stand-up comedian was not always sunshine and roses. Breaking into the 90s comedy circuit is hard enough, but doing it as a black trans woman seems near impossible. But Flame's willingness to consistently show up, be funny, and love herself unabashedly built a bridge of compassion between her and her audience. Looking back at the comedy scene that often refused to accept her, Flame sees there's still a lot of room for change in the era of cancel culture and explosive Twitter threads. Yet, she also has forged an incredible path for future comedians, teaching audiences to love her as she learned to love herself at 12 years old. We'll get back to the podcast right after this break. The MarTech podcast, hosted by Benjamin Shapiro, is brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. With episodes you can listen to in under 30 minutes, the MarTech podcast shares stories from world-class marketers who use technology to generate growth and achieve business and career success. One of my favorite episodes is about how artificial intelligence is changing sales. So you might be scared of AI and think it's going to take over the world and eventually lead to our demise. But that's not true, at least for the time being. This episode discusses the overlap of sales and technology and how artificial intelligence is shaping the landscape. Listen to MarTech wherever you get your podcasts. And now, back to the podcast. I'm here with Flame Monroe. Growing up in Chicago in the 1980s, Flame did not anticipate a career as a comedian. She experienced bullying for both gender and sexual identity early age, but eventually is expressing herself now in full drag, gaining a sense of community. I feel like you introduce yourself as a comedian who happens to be trans, which I think is a pretty... It seems like an intentional introduction. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes. Well, the reason I took that on that way and make that very important to me because when they used to say transgender comedian Flame Monroe, you never heard nothing past transgender. It never went past transgender. So then I had to be labeled and been put in a box. And I've never wanted to be a comedian that worked with only gay people or white people or black people or fat people. I wanted to be able to work in any arena. So I made sure that I made that important to me because a lot of times they just say, oh, it's a gay comedian. So then it's the whole show gay, the whole show transgender. No, how about we just comedians? I just happen to be transgender. So I make that distinction and I make people introduce me in that way.
Yeah, and I think it seems like something that's been really important in your stories, being able to like just compete with the best, no matter like who or what they are. How were you so like, I guess like, I mean, kind of going back, like how were you so initially confident to represent a like really, really like a, you know, a personality and a way of presenting yourself that like was not accepted by the world?
Oh, I had a time experience and my grandmother was Blackfeet Indian and a black woman and cold-blooded like you wouldn't believe. Just instill confidence, not just confidence, just this is who you are. This is who you were made to be. Don't start changing this and changing that because you're never going to find it. So she always preached your happiness is in that mirror. Go look at that mirror. When you were angry, when I would be angry about something, she said, go look in the mirror and see what your other self said to that self. It sounds crazy, but it works.
And what did you see when you were like looking in that mirror? Like what were the traits that you really wanted to embody?
Brilliance. I knew I was a brilliant bitch since I was 12.
did before, and then how did you actually get into drag too? Like what was the initial impetus?
It was Halloween. I was like so many other queens was born on Halloween. I did it one time. Let me just do it one time and see what it's like. And couldn't get out of it. Got stuck.
What was the costume, or what were you wearing?
I had the cheapest sequins money could buy, but it was the old industrial sequin, so it was real shiny, but it was real warm. And it was just a green tulle dress I had borrowed from Chili Pepper in Chicago with these spaghetti straps. And I had this big old piece of black hair on. I thought I was Diana Ross personified. And the long evening gloves. It was just, and you know who put my makeup on me the very first time? My biological mother, Miss Valerie. My mother put my makeup on. Mm-hmm.
What was that like for you?
Looking back on it now, it was great. But at the time, it was kind of weird because she really didn't want me to be gay. Damn sure didn't want me to be a trans person or dressing up in drag. And I don't know, but she saw me in the bathroom struggling. She came in and put this disco blue eyeshadow on me. It was terrible. But my mother had to come to a point in her life where do I love my child more than I hate what my child has become? And she realized that she loved her child way more than what I had become. I never disrespected my mother. When I wasn't happy where I was, I changed my surroundings and I went and moved and lived with somebody else.
You were 15 when you left home?
Oh, baby, if I'm not happy, I will leave.
Where did you go?
I went to stay with another woman. Her name was Mrs. Mandy B. Wade. May she rest in peace. Look at all my people did. She was just the nicest old lady. She used to be our neighbor, and she was a wonderful person. She took great care of me. She made sure I finished high school. She did. Well, I was just very flamboyant. I wasn't dressing up in drag. I would wear a girl sweater sometimes or girl shoes, but not heels, like flats. Because I was in high school and I was in the marching band. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I knew I wanted to entertain, but I couldn't sing. I wasn't no great dancer. And I figured I'd find it one day. And lo and behold, I dressed up on Halloween and started doing drag shows, and I found it.
Was the drag show on Halloween?
Well, they had like an amateur show on Halloween. I didn't perform on that one, but I watched. I just watched because I was terrified. And there was a club that I started out in Chicago called the Baton Show Lounge. It's been going on for 50 plus years. And the owner, Jim Flint, was a tyrant, but he had an eye of picking out the most phenomenal girls. He could see things in you that you didn't even know. So he hired me. My first show I ever did, I did from the original soundtrack, Dreamgirls, "Move, You're Stepping on My Heart" by Jennifer Holliday. And then I went to the Black Club, which was Club Lorraine, which was where I just turned into a flower and flourished. I did Tina Marie, "You Make Love Like Springtime." Oh my God, I thought I was the last white woman. I wore my blonde hair and everything. That's where I met Tasha Thomas at, who I watched, who was so quick-witted on the mic, so funny, and such a great entertainer. Just a good person all the way around, and could cut up. Oh my God. And I didn't even realize I was studying her, but I was studying her and didn't know it. She was fantastic. I don't know if I'll ever be as good as she was, but I try.
Can we start a little earlier about how you started doing stand-up comedy as a fluke?
Oh, yeah. So my muse, again, Tasha Thomas, may she rest in peace, was fighting with another girl, another friend of mine named Casey, may she rest in peace. AIDS in the 80s took a lot of my friends. And so they suspended them both that night. So they came in the dressing room, and we all in the dressing room. It was maybe 7 or 8 of us. And none of us, we in the dressing room cutting up. None of us was ready for no microphone. And so
dressing room for what?
Getting dressed for drag. We were getting dressed for the drag show.
And what does a drag show even look like or sound like?
Oh my God, we had the best ones back in the day, 80s and 90s. It was just the dressing room, the green room where we get ready together is where we had the best camaraderie. So we got each other ready for the 5 or 6 minutes that you guys get to see us. But the dressing room is where all the drama and all the fun and all the love and joy actually happens. And so Mark, who was the manager at the time, may he rest in peace also, a Latin guy, came in the back and he said, "I need a host for tonight." So we all looking around each other and like, nobody want to get on a microphone. He says, "Flame, you do it, because I hear you back here talking shit all the time." I says, "I don't want to get on a microphone. That's not what I do." And he was like, "No, I want you to do it." So I was like, "No, I'm not doing it." So he's like, "I give you an extra $50. I said, "Okay." So I went out there and I was absolutely terrible. I was terrible. He said, "Okay, I want you to come back next week. I want you to try it again." I said, "I don't want to do that. I just want to be on the show." Did it the next week. I was worse the second week than I was the first week.
How did you know you were so bad?
I just felt, nothing. I didn't know how to tell jokes. And I wasn't comfortable on stage with people listening to what I had to say. So that he said, I'm going to give you one more try. I'm telling you, sometimes people see things in you that you never know. And he said, I'm going to give you one more try. I said, I don't want to do it. I begged him not to let me do it. He said, so I went up there and somebody heckled me from the audience. That quick
Heckled
wit
you? What did
kicked
they
in.
say?
I don't remember. That was 30 years ago. They said, whatever they said, I multiplied, divided, added, and subtracted that ass. They won't never say it again. And the audience went crazy. And then I realized, oh, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And then I just became a comedian. And then we went to a comedy club about a year later, just hanging out, me and some friends. And they were cutting up. So my friend said, Flame, go up there. Go. I said, I'm not going up there. And this was, all jokes aside, which was one of the greatest comedy clubs ever in Chicago. And the host at the time, Damon Williams, saw me, and I was never a passable trans woman. I mean, I had a beautiful body, delicious body, but you knew. And he started joining me from the audience, and I just went back, and we went back. Boy, I tore his ass up. He invited me to come on stage, so I went on stage. And I had on pants and like a teddy. You could see through my tits, see my boobs and everything. He was like, I know you're not a woman, but those titties look real good. If it wasn't nobody looking, I said, don't run up on me, play. And I lifted my pants leg up because at the time I was on house arrest. And oh my God, the whole place went crazy. I never stopped doing comedy since then.
What did you like about that experience? Like, was there something about being on stage, interacting with the crowd? Like what was like intoxicating about it?
Well, working in a straight arena, working in a heterosexual arena, doing stand-up, I've always had the value of the shock value. I've always had the plus of the shock value. And I learned in that dynamic and in that arena that people accept people that are different from them if you allow it to slide in slowly and organically. But if you jump on it and say, I'm here, I'm queer, get used to it and all that, people don't want to receive that because you're not giving me a choice. And you're not giving me time to intake it. It's not that people hate gay people or trans people or any other. It's just that they don't understand. So you need somebody to be able to just slowly move their way in and infiltrate till you make them understand that you what you think is ignorant or wrong, you just don't understand. Let me explain it to you. And people receive you better. But this new generation ain't like that.
And well, I actually we'll touch on that in a little bit, but I guess I want to know like what were some of those experiences of like like are there any I guess experiences that jump out to you where you had to deal with like this heterosexual crowd that
Oh my
wasn't
God,
as forgiving
every time,
yeah.
all the time. But I'm from the west side of Chicago, and that's not to say that I'm the baddest, but I'm damn sure not afraid. And I've actually been accosted on stage before. It did not go down like Will Smith and Chris Rock because I am not that girl or that boy. But I mean, I've had altercations in that way. Things just happen. And I've had horrible situations from a bunch of male comedians back in the day. But when they realized they wasn't chasing me out the game and this is who I was and what I wanted to do, the respect is unbelievable now. The love is unbelievable. Like, I waited my time, I waited my turn, I didn't force my way in, I allowed it to happen, and I kept showing up being funny. As long as you show up and being funny, I think it negates anything else that you present. And I kept showing up being funny.
Could you tell me about one of your performances in like Uptown Atlanta? Because like it seemed like that specific show had like it was like a pretty tough crowd, and then you ended up meeting some important people. But yeah, could you tell me about that?
Yeah, so that was I think that was 2011, maybe something like that. And Uptown was notorious for late night shows. They would do 3 on Saturday. The third show was a killer. But Sunday night was the ghetto, and that particular show, which is on YouTube, and I had the see-through blue dress on. Oh, I want that body back too. But that particular night was the ghetto strip club, drug dealers, gangbangers, paradise night. So they would all come. And so I watched them boo 2 A-list comedians off the stage before I got on, whose names I will not mention. I was there. They know.
Really? Booed off the stage?
Boo, and would throw bottles. And it was like that. So the manager at the time, his name was Hank. He was the nicest guy. He came in the back and he said, Flame, They real rowdy. I don't know if they're going to be ready for you. I'm going to still pay you your full pay, but you ain't got to go on if you don't want to. I said, give me a few minutes to think about it. Let me have the dressing room to myself. He left the green room. I was in there. I looked myself in the mirror. I said, well, bitch, you said you want to be a comedian. This is the arena you want to work in. Are you going to sink or swim? I grabbed myself by the balls and lifted up my tits and said, let's do it. And you saw it. You saw it. And they loved me. And they didn't love me because I went out there and attacked them. I always attack me first and make you so comfortable that I'm comfortable being me, that it makes you comfortable around people like me or me. So that art, but that night they loved me. I was booked there all the time.
Wow. Did that feel like a turning point for you in any way?
Not in my career, but it made me know that I had the confidence to stand next to and up with any comedian that you put in front of me. That's what it did for me.
Yeah. I also want to hear about, I guess maybe another experience where there was a little bit of a physical altercation where you were doing some stand-up.
When I told you I was accosted on stage?
Yeah.
Oh, that was brand new in my career. That was just some knucklehead. He will never accost anyone else again.
Yeah. What happened there?
He will never accost anyone else again. That's all you need to know. And when I say
Okay.
that, I mean that he will never accost anyone else again. You pick that story apart the way you want to.
Okay. Noted. We'll get back to the podcast right after this break. When was the last time you heard someone say it's almost too easy when talking about a piece of tech? Well, maybe with like Steve Jobs and the iPhone, but it doesn't happen often because tech usually isn't easy. Like ask any person over 70, like they don't know what they're doing. Tech is usually too complicated, too busy, and too frustrating when it should be just plain easy, like kicking a soccer ball in any direction. The HubSpot CRM platform is like all of those things. It's ridiculously easy to learn, use, and love. A passionate love with a suite of powerful tools that seamlessly connects your teams and customizable hubs that you can add or subtract as you grow. I guess that's why it's called HubSpot. It's not almost too easy to use. It's easy to use, period. Learn how HubSpot can help your business grow better at HubSpot.com. And now back to the podcast. So where did you first meet Tiffany Haddish?
I met Tiffany Haddish here in LA at the Comedy Union Comedy Club on Pico and La Brea. God, I missed that spot. COVID took so many great spots. And she was young. I was younger. And she came and she said she was so innocent and so cute. And she said, excuse me, can I ask you a question? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, are you a drag queen? I said, sometimes. But she didn't know that I was a comedian. So then they called my name. I went up and blazed the room. And we talked. And we just, I don't know, we just had a natural bond. It was very organic. It wasn't forced. Tiffany is just a sweet person for real. And so when I did Botch, the TV show Botch, because my left titty was gangbanging, it had encapsulated. I didn't even know. And I met one of the producers when I worked at a club here in Long Beach, which name I will not say of that club. Anywho, so we were just talking in passing. People always talk to me like I have this friendly face. I always think I'm mean mugging. And he was like, you want to get anything repaired? I'm a producer at Botch. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Because, everybody out here pretend to be something they're not, including me. And I gave him my email, and a couple of weeks later, I got an email, and they invited me back. And Dr. DeBro and Dr. Nasser was cool as a fan. But that Dr. DeBro is the nicest and funniest character you will ever want to meet in your life. He was so cool. He fixed my boobs. It was a great experience. So when I had to do the big reveal, I asked Tiffany to introduce me. And this was pre-Girls Trip. Yeah, Girls Trip hadn't even come out yet. So Tiffany was not the star that she is. Mm-hmm. And she did, and I told the producer, y'all need to watch this girl. She's going to be a star. Tiffany introduced me and told me that night, she said, Flame, I think you're a star. If I make it, I'm coming back to get you. And she did. She surely did. Yeah.
What does that mean to you, like coming back to get you?
That meant that once Tiffany pulled back the blanket off of me, it allowed everybody else to say, Flame, we finally see you. That's how I felt in the comedian world. That they knew who I was, they knew of me, they had worked with me. But when Tiffany allowed me to be on They Ready, and we got Emmy nominated for my episode, thank you very much, it just allowed all the other comedians and the world to just see me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'd love to talk about how that even came about. So maybe if you could like lead me up, because that happened in 2019. So 2017 is when like Tiffany has like one of her breakout roles. So maybe like track me up, like how your career is going, how hers is, and how you guys reconnect eventually.
Oh, we never lost contact. My number hasn't changed ever in 20 years because I have children. But my career was dead. My career was, I was ostracized by the LGBT community here in Southern California, so I couldn't work. I was blacklisted from one club, and they put the feelers out for all the other clubs to blacklist me and not
How
book
did that
me in
happen?
any club. The LGBT community is full of racism, ageism, and hate. Let me just say that out loud and publicly because I ain't afraid of nothing but God. But the only queen, and let me say this very publicly, Morgan McMichaels from Southern California, who's on RuPaul's, who's one of the fan favorites on RuPaul's Drag Race, broke the line and said she's talented, I like her, and the people love her, and always booked me. So I always hold Morgan McMichaels in high regard for that. But it was a lot of hate and racism out here, so I couldn't work, and I had 3 kids.
How did it start though?
Just because I was so talented and they were not. It really is not safe for trans female entertainers here in Southern California because they just don't give them a fair shake. Sonique is from here. She a white girl, beautiful body. She won RuPaul's All-Stars, but they gave her a hard time because she was trans. It is, the inclusion is definitely not in the LGBTQIA plus community. It's not within us. But so they did that, and Morgan always booked me, so I kept working. And then Tiffany told me a year before, get your set ready. I got something for you. And so I was like, okay. And it took about a year, honestly. And about 3 months in, that she started calling regularly, so I knew it was real. And so we thought the pay was going to be like $35,000, and I was like, it could have been $200. It could have been $200 for me at that time. But it was very good. It was exceptional pay. We were paid well over 6 figures, and we're treated
Wow.
like royalty by Netflix and Tiffany Haddish and Pusher Productions, which include Wanda Sykes and Paige Horowitz.
So I want to double click on just the show. So how do you think about putting together your set? What do you want to like? How are you thinking about what you want to talk about, and how are you thinking about this opportunity?
You know what was important to me was to make sure that I did a great job because it was Tiffany's first baby that she produced. So it was very important for me to impress Tiffany because so many celebrities that I know, none of them ever came back for me. None of them ever gave me opportunities like this. So I knew I had to soar because it was Tiffany, and that I was different, and that, she put me on a show of all women, So I was like, oh, you got to go out here and do that. And it really did do great. And when my episode got nominated for the Emmy, I was blown out the water. But that's how you just put in your mind that, I never put in my mind this was gonna be it. This was gonna be. I just put in my mind, you know what, bitch, go have a great time. Thank Tiffany for this great amount of money, and turn it out. And I turned it out better than I even thought.
Yeah. How did you start to realize that this was like good?
What made me know that it was something was when the Breakfast Club called me to invite me to the Breakfast Club, because they had never had nobody like me on there as a comedian. Most trans people that go on there argue about pronouns and sexuality and identity. I was coming on there as an entertainer, and they loved me and hired me for iHeart the first week, the first time I ever did it.
Wow.
So I knew then, like, oh yeah, playing. They see you, they listen to you, they hear your rhetoric, go. So I just pushed set and went, and then the damn pandemic hit.
Yeah, what was that like for you? Because it's like you're just having your career take off again. You have this Netflix special, you get invited on all the right shows, and then COVID.
Yeah. Luckily, iHeart had already hired me and paid me lovely. I still had a bunch of money because I didn't need anything. We moved to a beautiful house, and I didn't need anything. So I never have high demands. It's my children who need every damn thing. Good God, please help me. And I was really good at saving my money after being blacklisted and ostracized and not having any money. We had days too where, and I'm going to publicly admit that I would have to put on my girdle and my big jogging pants and go steal food for my children because I was blacklisted in Southern California because I couldn't work. I never had a reputation for not having beautiful costumes and clothes or being great on the show and new music. I just had a bunch of jealous people that were in charge that could not take that. I was not going to accept you talking to me any kind of way, and I don't care who you think you are.
How did that feel to, like, I guess, like have to do that?
It is the old adage that my grandmother always told me. There's two things that you will never forget about a person. You will never forget a person's face, and you will never forget the way somebody made you feel. And I remember how they made me feel, and I was determined in my life to never allow anyone else to ever make me feel that low, that I had to hustle for 50 shitty dollars and take all your BS because you was jealous because I was making $1,000 worth of tips in 2 hours. Step your game up. Don't try to pull a man down.
Yeah. And so with, I guess, like COVID, you're kind of experiencing that again. And how did you push through it?
Oh, I'm an avid worker. Like I told you, work just comes. Like I told you, I just did this audiobook, which was great pay, but hard work. Let me say that was the hardest work. That was the hardest work I've had to do in a long time. And I've sold out 5 shows at Caroline's, but that was the hardest damn work. Good God. But it was so rewarding, and when the book comes out, I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. The author James Hannaham, has been on the New York bestsellers list once or twice. The story is phenomenal. It's a roller coaster of emotions, and the book is called "Don't Nobody Give a Shit About Carlotta." It's a great read, and I hope. And I was so nervous because I was like, my voice ain't no audio voice. But when I listened to the playback, I was like, okay, now, Flame Monroe, you got another click under your belt. I got a new experience.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think like you could really expand to any place in media that you want if you just have like that factor. If you're engaging, you can be engaging anywhere. And I also like to maybe dive into something that happened during COVID or in 2021, because you were you had responded to the Dave Chappelle special, The Closer, and I feel like that was like another potential blacklist moment too, because the community was like the trans community was very against that that special. And so what were your thoughts?
And so as a comedian, and I've watched a lot, and I'm not going to even say, and I'm going to say this, David's not my favorite male comedian. He is not. But when I listened to his special, and I've watched all his specials because I still do love me some Dave. And when he talked about sticks and stones, if you want to say maybe he had a little homophobia or a little transphobia back then, I may even say I can agree with that. But by the time he hit the closer, which was 4 specials later, I heard a man who had evolved, who had learned and listened. He said he met a young trans woman, Daphne, his friend, my friend. He considered her his friend. She was Caucasian. He said she wanted to be a stand-up comedian. He said she was lousy at it. She was terrible. But he gave her the opportunity to open for him. That is a great opportunity, first of all, for anyone, gay, straight, black, white, trans, whatever. But then that you loud, that he told her that she wasn't good, and he still gave her opportunities. But he said when he sat in the green room and he talked to her, and they talked to each other and not at each other, he realized that everybody is just human. You got a different story from mine, you got a different presentation from mine, but I hear you. So when Dave considered her his friend, that's what I heard. I heard that Daphne had, may she rest in peace, had bridged the gap to show that people can understand people if you take the time to talk to people. That's what I heard. All what they heard, I didn't hear what they heard. That he said something. So if you say the word tranny, you get in the goddamn, everybody got in uproar any damn way. And I use tranny all the time. But I just needed to speak up because, first of all, I'm black. That's my first. I'm black first. Then I'm a comedian. Then I'm transgender. So I feel like I had 3 dogs in the fight. I needed to speak up. And it wasn't that I spoke up to just have support for Dave. I was supporting the black in me. I was supporting the transgender in me. And I heard that he met somebody that he would meet in his everyday life that he considered a friend. Do you know how important those words were coming out of somebody's mouth who's did sticks and stones, who act like they didn't even like trannies, but now you have met somebody that made you know, I understand. I see a person, a human. It was a great evolvement for me. I thought I'd give Dave an A+ in that class because he took the time and the patience and the understanding to meet somebody where they was and make them his friend. That was great to me. So yes, I had to speak up, and I did get back. I didn't worry about getting canceled at that point. I was the hottest ticket on the market at that point. May he rest in peace. Paul Mooney told me before he left this earth, He says, I don't care who you work with, bitch, they gonna always remember the sissy in the dress. And I took them words to heart.
What do you think most people misunderstand? Like, because like you were saying that like Dave Chappelle had misunderstood, and then he went through this like this growth period. So what do you think most people misunderstand?
Well, it's what you don't know. Like I just told you, if I would have came in the comedy club and I was always dressed as a woman and bombarded my way in, or oh, I'm here, this is what it is, and I allow people to take their time to meet me where I'm at. I'm not coming to you. You will always come to me, always. And I think that I say, well, we ain't forcing, and it's not forcing. But when people don't understand, if they don't want to understand, you can't get upset that they don't want to understand. They just don't want to understand. And sometimes they don't. That don't mean they hate you. That don't mean they want to see you starve. That don't mean they want to see you homeless. It's just that they don't understand, and it may not be for them. And that is okay, because to me, that's better for you to know that you're not my lifestyle. You're not the person I want to be around. So I'm going to stay over here and you stay over there. Enjoy your house, enjoy your life, and I'm going to enjoy mine. But our own community, like I told you, ostracize each other, cancel each other, blacklist each other.
Yeah, why do you think that is? Like
Angry.
Why is there so much animosity?
Angry, frustration, unhappiness, don't know joy. So busy worried about watching somebody else's plate that the food on their plate getting cold.
Is it just because like they feel like ostracized?
No.
And
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. You know why I wouldn't say that? Because I work in both communities. I still work a bunch. I do a lot of stuff with AHF. I do a lot of work in the community. The heterosexual community is ready to come to the tables with their hands flat, listen to the gripes and the issues, change the laws and the bylaws, started with Obama. But the gay community keeps sending the wrong, it's not that some of them are not ready, but they keep sending the wrong representatives to the table. If you send somebody that's angry and disgruntled, mad, frustrated already, you will never hear what the other person is saying. We have some fair people in the LGBTQIA plus community. They just don't have the platform or the capacity to speak at the big wigs table.
So who do you think should represent?
I have no idea. I know I don't want to. That's not that important to me. I don't want to. I do think that I will help children, because younger trans, because I would have them see themselves. You have to like your genitalia. You have to like who you are before you transition. Because if you don't like who you are before you transition, you're going to hate who you transition into. You got to embrace all the facets of who you are. That's all I push is acceptance. That's it. You accept you first. Everybody else will come around.
You spoke a little bit about like how you feel about cancel culture. Could you tell me a little bit about how you view where I guess like the online talking and communication is today with cancel culture?
Just a bunch of lazy bullies that's sitting there listening to Google, and Google is a liar. So that's all the cancel culture is. Because if they was back from my era, where you had to go to different libraries and research encyclopedias and take the time to put some stuff together, it probably would just dissipate. But now you could just go to Google, and Google can tell you that your eyes are green and your heritage is Irish and you black as tar. Absolutely not. So I think they're just lazy, and I thank Netflix and Dave Chappelle for standing up against the cancel culture and shutting them down. I think that was the beginning of the end of the cancel culture. I do.
Yeah. And I think like I think where cancel culture like can go wrong a lot of times is it's like it can be really intolerant, and it could actually like I think it doesn't actually encourage people to grow. It encourages like you mess up once and then you're done. And even when you were mentioning Dave Chappelle, it's like, okay, like he was maybe transphobic initially, like four specials ago, but now like you've seen this growth as a person, and like there can be like places where we can, or like points where we can learn. But the learning shouldn't stop there, right? Because like if you cancel someone, then the learning stops there. It should be like, okay, here's a teaching point. Carry that to your next your work after that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that seems like the best philosophy moving forward. And so in terms of the work that you're doing now, and in terms of like podcasts and you're going to Australia, like what are you most excited for the future?
You know what? I'm hoping that and I always say this, that I don't want to be the spokesperson for the LGBTQIA plus community, but I do know that I do have a level of responsibility, and I would like to be the liaison to pull us together, so it will now be no more us and them. It'll just be us. I'm hoping that my voice ain't gonna be the voice of reason, because I get a lot of opposition from my own community, from my own trans sisters. But for the 10 or 12 that's disgruntled, I get 85% of the community telling me, Flame, we with you, we hear you, we understand exactly, and we believe what you're saying. This is how we feel too. But so many people are not in positions like I am. They can't speak their mind because they might get canceled. They might lose their jobs. They might lose their situation. I ain't gonna lose my situation. When the pandemic first hit, I invested $8,000 into Moderna. I am good like a motherfucker. Oh, I mean to say that. I am good like you wouldn't believe.
That is a ridiculously good investment. I wish I did the same. So
it was $56 when I started. When I pulled my money out, it was $343 per share.
Sheesh! Wow, an amazing investment. Wow,
cancel your mama.
So you're also working on the podcast Laugh and Learn, right? So can
with
you
my
tell
partner
me?
Lauren Hogan, my co-host Lauren Hogan. You want me to tell you about the podcast? So
tell me.
the first year we started, I had a different partner, my friend Nick Smith. We are still very good friends. And he went a different direction, and I was going a different direction. So Lauren, who I met through AHF, who put me on the burlesque campaign and hired me right off, I loved her business mind. I loved her business savvy. And we were on the road doing the tour for the burlesque campaign. I think we did 6 cities. She made sure as a star that I was taken care of. I love people who take care of me, because nobody takes care of me. And I hired her as a manager right off. And so when the pandemic hit, Nick couldn't come all the time because of restrictions. So Lauren sat in his seat, and it just fit. And we just had a great relationship since then. So the first year we did all politics. I am over politics. We're doing a little more hot topics with politics, and a little more hodgepodge, because it was just draining. Politics is so draining.
Yeah, no, it can be really draining. So what are you looking forward to most with the podcast? What do you look like? Topics are you looking to cover? What are you most excited about?
Well, I just did a conversation, because I don't interview. I conversate with people, because the interviewing puts you on high alert. Conversating makes people, like what we're doing. It's easy to talk to when you conversate. I just had a conversation with Macy Gray last Sunday because of the whole backlash that she received because of her statement, her opinion, which she's allowed. And I think that's what I want to do. I want to sit and have conversations with, and it don't always have to be negative. It don't always have to be because something went wrong in the news. But this is how you get to know people. This is how you mend the fences and bridge the gap. Just conversating with people. So how was your day? As simple as, what did you have for breakfast? And what are your plans for this evening? What's next on your agenda? How are your children? Not, oh, so I saw you in the movie, because we all publicly saw that. People want to know more. They want to know more of who you are as a person. And that's what I like to do. I like to conversate with people and ask me questions. You can ask me, I'll ask you. That's fair. I'm a fair bitch. I'm a fair person.
And I guess to wrap things up, what do you think in doing like comedy and all of the entertaining that you've done? What do you think is like your biggest learning lesson from all of your years of experience?
Oh my goodness, which is what I tell all new comedians. When they say, Flame, you got any advice for any up and coming comedians? Or you got any advice for any comedian that's been in the game? Build great relationships and get as much stage time as you can. That's all it is. But you build, because you might not make it, but like Tiffany made and came and got me. So build great relationships, even with people that are shitheads, because there's a lot of people in the entertainment industry that are shitheads. Deal with it. Tolerate it. Don't be dismissive or intrusive or nasty, because you never know who will pull you up. This game is not always about your talent anymore. This game is truly about who you know and who's going to give you an opportunity for for the world to see you. When that time comes that they can see you, you better show up and you better show out. That's what that stage stand will do for you. Show out.
I love that.
Did I show out for you on J Randy?
Yes, you did. I appreciate you so much.
On that too. I was so fat on that. Every time I look at that, I was like, "Oh, your fat ass."
You look great. I love the dress. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, rate the podcast 5 stars, and share with a friend. If you have any questions or comments, DM us at Finding Founders Podcast on Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook. Finding Founders is produced and hosted by me, Samuel Donner.
Our Chief of Staff and Operations is Jessica Lynn.
Our audio editing team lead is Adrian Tapia. Support from
Irene Van Berkel,
Matt Fernandez,
Renee Buchanan,
Sophia Donner,
David Saide,
Ashley Jimenez,
Nicholas Guzman,
Aaron Devereaux,
Sanessa Gisley,
and Lois Choi.
Our outreach and research lead is Kenny Ong, with support from
Sarah Hobson,
Charisse Tan,
Harushi Kanauchi,
Kristen Hagelin,
Aya Cortez,
and Valencia Lu.
Our writing team lead is Elizabeth Bowen with support from
Aiden Ashworth,
Nikki Mukawa,
Sylvie Wang,
and Eric Mena.
Our design team lead is Shruti Ramanand with support from
Tiffany Dang,
Yao Liu,
and Dina Gabriel.
To see more of what we're up to, subscribe to our newsletter at findingfounders.co. Thanks again for listening, and see you next week.